Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'd like to welcome you. My name is Husnain Nawaz. I'm an executive at the MSA. Today we're here with our brand campaign. We have Maulana Sheryar. Just a few things about our brand campaign. The goal of the brand campaign is to introduce Islam's way of life into the regular life, make ourselves the ambassadors of Islam, as well as to learn to navigate life through the Islamic lens. Maulana Sheryar is an imam at Masjid Rahmah. He's also an instructor at Al-Ihsan. He started studying at Al-Ihsan under the tutelage of Mufti Rashid. Then he traveled to Pakistan where he studied Quran and Arabic under the supervision of Maulana Jamil, and he ended up completing his alim course in UK at the Darul Uloom over there. Assalamu alaikum, Maulana. How are you doing?
How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Well, I have a question. The first question is, just as Muslims, how important is it to start with the name of Allah?
Ooh, how important? I think it's crucial actually. It's crucial that we start with the name of Allah. Like the phrase Bismillah, it's called Basmala. So Basmala, like if you pick up any surah of the Quran besides one surah, or Surah At-Tawbah, it's in place before the commencement of every surah. In fact, it's mentioned 114 times in the Quran. Even when Sulaiman Islam was talking to Bilqis and he wrote that letter, he started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most just and kind. Right? So that brings tremendous amount of blessings into what you're going to do. Like Bismillah has a whole lecture on its own, so I'm not going to go into that. It brings blessings and protection. Something that we need even in our speech.
Yeah.
Right? We want, through whatever we're saying, we want it a means of guidance. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So Allah will protect you from that. Right? So protection from when you're driving, like you want to, Subhanallah, that's the dua. But how we get onto the car, we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim before we get into the car, before eating food. So it's a means of blessing and protection in everything that we do.
For the person that's trying to learn this or introduce this in their life, what's the best way to do it? Like, one is when you're doing an action. Another is when you begin speaking. What's, I think, the quickest way or like the most efficient way for a Muslim to learn, take the first step?
Well, it depends. Like a lot of us, we assume that everyone Islamically, in terms of the Iman, is at the same level, which is not true. Everyone in their process of learning Islam and the level of Iman, everyone's very different. So for everyone, there's a different starting point. But let's start from like when you wake up, right? This is the first time you should actually focus that, okay, I need to say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim just to start off my day, just to get my day started with the blessings in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Though there are like prayers and du'as and everything that we should recite when we wake up, but Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is like one of those phrases you can say it at all times.
It's very easy as well.
It's very easy. And even for someone who's very new to Islam, for them as well. And someone who wants to make this their baby step, for them as well. And someone who's an expert, because it benefits everyone in multiple ways. Right? So we should start off the morning with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
So you've also had the honor of teaching several programs. You've taught the Mishkah, you've taught the Tafsir Jalalain, and you've also taught the Muwatta of Imam Malik. What are these works and what does it mean to really understand these works for an average Muslim?
Oh, these are like very advanced level books, right? So they're not like it was such an honor to, like the first time I taught this, I remember Mufti Asim Rashid, he gave us the responsibility of teaching, and I wasn't able to teach it for a month, right? It's a very, not because I didn't want to, it's because it's a very, very, it's a great responsibility just placed on your shoulders, right? It's not easy to fulfill. So may Allah forgive my shortcomings in that. What the Imam Malik, it's basically, like Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, he was based off in Medina, right? So if you want to learn his fiqh, it's found in that. But he does it in the light of hadith. So he just does it very beautifully. And some of the chains, like one of the khasiyah, like one of the speciality, I don't want to get into too much of what the Imam Malik is. One of the speciality of what the Imam Malik, there is a term which is used in hadith terminology called the golden chain. So there's a lot more golden chain narrations in Muwatta Imam Malik than the Bukhari.
Subhanallah.
Right? A lot of people know about Imam
Yeah.
Bukhari, but they don't understand the Muwatta Imam Malik also has very high, like in terms of hierarchy of the narrations, it's a very high, chain of narration that Muwatta Imam Malik's had. Mishkat al-Masabih is actually like the juice, like a concentrated juice of Bukhari and Muslim. So he has 3 sections in Bab, as they call it. So he starts off with hadiths he found with regards to the subject that's being discussed in Bukhari and Muslim. Basically, it's a beautiful for a lot of us. You know how there's books Riyadh al-Salihin, right? 14 hadith Imam Nawawi, like Arba'in al-Nawawi.
Yeah.
So Mishkat al-Masabih is also of that category, but it's just a little advanced.
MashaAllah.
But even if a normal person just studies the hadith, like it will help them a lot to build Muslim identity, right? It could be taught in both ways. That's the beauty of Mishkat al-Masabih, right? And Jalalain is Jalalain, right?
Yeah.
So Jalalain is basically like an advanced version of Ibn Kathir rahimahullah ta'ala, right? This tafsir of Ibn Kathir is very famous because it just quotes the hadith with regards to the discussion that's taking place in the ayah. Jalalain will throw in some of the linguistic aspects of it as well at times, right? So it's very, very good. It's very concise, right? And it's very, very easy to understand. So it's for the, a non-academic person and for the academic person as well. Both can benefit from it.
Inshallah. And then you hit it out right off. Today, inshallah, I want to ask you a few questions about what the Muslim identity is. So the first question, inshallah, we're going to start with is how do we define the ideal Muslim identity? What are the characteristics? What are the qualities? And in other words, what is the Muslim identity?
Okay. I want to relate this, just now when I was thinking, I was at Khabib's event, and then they asked him, like, you're an ideal person for the, for the Muslims, for the youth. They love you. They adore. For those who love UFC, I don't know much about it, right? So I just happened to be there. So Khabib's like, you can't say that I'm an ideal Muslim because a lot of flaws. So this question, if I were to rephrase it, like who should be an ideal personality that we need to follow, right? And that would be none other than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the Quran in itself it says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. He's the best example, right? So for an ideal Muslim, it is none other than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So this is the lifestyle that we need to look up to. And the qualities that we need to look. Like for example, sunnah. When I use the word sunnah, a lot of people, for some of them, they'll understand the sunnah before we start the salah, sunnah after we complete our fard, right? A sunnah of eating, sunnah of sleeping. But the other forms of sunnah which are overlooked, again, those sunnah we will only learn if we actually learn our deen, right? Is that how Rasulullah dealt with people. So if I was to place your question in the context of university students, right?
Just to ask about that, why, I want to kind of ask, like, where are we missing the gaps? Is it because of how much little we know of our deen? Is it a few other factors? What is it that we need to go on and learn about that can connect us with that?
So, biggest, like, you guys, mashallah, all of you guys are university students, right? You're doing your undergrad for most of you. You're learning to educate yourself so you can be good at something, right? So you're like trying to gain that knowledge of that field so you could be an expert, maybe even do a PhD or master's in it or something like that, right? So how do you get that encouragement? Like what motivates you? Like I need to get this, my undergrad degree and go to grad school and master's and PhD. What motivates you, right? So you have to take that same element from there and apply it here. Like in end of the day, that knowledge that you're gaining is that you could be a better person in this world, right? So you take that same motivation, you extract it from there. You're like, in order for me to be a better person in this world, I also have to adopt to a Muslim identity, which is following the footsteps of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? But that your degree of this world will benefit you in this world, right? It doesn't grant you more access to anything in hereafter. But if you take that motivation and you apply it to religious knowledge, they'll still benefit you in this world and in hereafter, right? Because the promises which Allah has kept in all of these, a lot of them will be fulfilled in hereafter, like the promise of paradise, like tranquility and peace and serenity. So everything we will get in hereafter.
Yeah.
So you're like, wow, like financial struggles won't be there, anxiety, depression won't be there, peer pressure won't be there, bullying won't be there, Islamophobia won't be there. Like, I just get to be me. And that is a big motivation. So sometimes the reason why the Quran has mentioned the rewards, right, is that's our human tendency. Like psychologically, it's like, okay, there's reward in it. And like, if I, do this degree or do this diploma, I'll get this type of job and I'll get this type of money. So like, okay, so if I memorize the Quran, I'll get this much reward in hereafter. If I memorize the hadith, I'll get this much reward in hereafter. Sometimes you just need to look at the reward to get the motivation to practice on amal, right? To practice upon the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or to learn more about deen.
Inshallah. Inshallah, the next question is, often people confuse culture and religion. How do we differentiate between the two? And how are the two compatible?
It really, like, first of all, culture and religion are not the same, right? Just get that right off the bat. All right? With the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is ultimately what we need to follow, right? But sometimes some of the practices, especially in the Muslim countries, Muslim are predominantly Muslim, some of the sunnah actually become part of the culture, right? Even though people have lost sense of like, this is a sunnah, actually I didn't know, right? So that's fine, right? Though those type of culture practices which have been adopted from sunnah are fine. But some culture practices which contradict sunnah, those are the practices we need to steer away from, right? Those are the practices we need to stay away from. It's not just practices. Some of the ideology, cultural ideology, which contradicts Islamic ideology, we need to stay away from that as well, right? So like some of the cultures, they treat women as second-class citizens. That's not Islamic ideology. That's not Islamic teachings. You just steer away from that, right? So treating everyone equal, that's the teaching of Islam. So that was just one light example.
Right? Okay, next question. Some people end up compromising on their deen here in the West. It could be influences from certain friends or colleagues, or they might be dealing with Islamophobia. What are the practical steps to learn and uphold our identity? In other words, what advice do you give to Muslims who struggle to uphold their Muslim identity?
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the Islamophobia part, right? First of all, I think through the video, I hope people know that there is helpline, right? That you can always call the officials to get, if you're feeling that on the bus, if something took place, or in the classroom something took place, you should report. Right? Even in uni, if you're feeling that your professor is giving you that vibe, you need to report. That's the first thing you need to do. This is what you're required to do. It helps RCMP to implement in rules and regulations which will help. So that's something on side. Second, yesterday I was with a group, and in that group there were people from different cultures, different faith, people who identified themselves to be different gender, all of these people, non-Muslims. And every single one of them was going through something. Right? So whether it was like a person with religious beliefs, certain religious beliefs, they were suffering. Someone who was wearing like a headgear, they were suffering. Someone who was a different race color, they were suffering. So a lot of people suffer in different ways. Right? A lot of people do suffer. It's not just the Muslims, right? Sometimes Muslims more than others in some of the situations. But we have to look for Muslims, right? This is what we have to find, which a lot of religions, they don't have, going back to your first question, they don't have a great example to look at. So it's very hard for them to relate their personal and day-to-day problems with the life of Rasulullah. We could. So if you come across someone that come across a little bit of bigotry, or someone says something to you racist, the other day I was getting to a elevator, and the guy said, I don't want to share my elevator with you. I was like, dude, I need to get I need to go lead Jummah, I'm getting late, please. He's like, no. I was like, okay, whatever, it's fine, right? So my wife is like, how come you didn't say anything to her? I was like, I'm used to it, right? She's not from here. She's from UK, so those people, they come up very strong. So I was like, I've just grown a little thicker skin to this kind of stuff now. It doesn't bother me. But if you feel that, okay, it's getting to you, you have to look at the Islamophobia at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What did the Quraysh do? They did not allow. Like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu declared that he's a Muslim, right? They pounced on him. They beat him so much that he was unconscious. Right? So like Islamophobia, even then it existed, right? But they're able to cope with it, not cope with it, but they're able to get through it, right? With having reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we're going through difficulties, whether with regards to like, racism, whether it's with regards to discrimination, whether it's regards to Islamophobia, we always have the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to reflect on. And from there, we just look at, like, if you remember the incident of Taif, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam just went there to practice a religion, and people threw stones at him, the kids threw stones at him, he started bleeding, right? To the extent that Allah had to send down an angel to talk to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you know the beautiful dua that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made at that point? Allahumma ashku ilayka dhu'fa quwwati. Right? Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is known as the person with the most sublime character. Right? لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Right? The best character. Right? And he's known to be the person with the most sadiqul ameen, the most trustworthy and the most truthful. Right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in terms of Sharia, which is our belief, right? It's our creed. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is flawless. He doesn't have any shortcomings with regards to, conveying his message. So you can understand the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not have any shortcomings when he was speaking to people of Taif. Right? He did not have any flaws in his speech, or he wasn't able. It wasn't that Prophet ﷺ was not able to convey the message. It was very clear. But because they hated Islam at that time, so they got the kids to throw stones at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that time could have made any dua. Any dua would have been accepted. But Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam expressed, Ya Allah, Allahumma ashku ilayka dhu'fa quwwati. Like, I put in front of you my weakness. Wow, like Prophet ﷺ was like, no, it's not their fault, but it's my fault, because of my weakness that I wasn't able to convey the message to them properly. Well, Allah says that you've done the best of the best jobs. Allah said in numerous places in the Quran that you don't be worried, don't like, لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ, like you have so much worry and concern for these people that perhaps you might put yourself at risk. The Prophet ﷺ had a lot of concern, but at the end of the day, he said it's my fault, right? So this is again, like going back to the first thing. A lot of times we think the Sunnah of Rasulullah is restricted to Salah and everything only, but these to have patience at the time adversity, trial or tribulation is also the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is what an ideal Muslim is at the end of the day. Khair.
You mentioned the example of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. I think one thing they had is that no matter what trial they went to, they were convinced of their deen. They were convinced of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And going into the next question, we find at the schools, universities, as students, we want to fit in with others. How can we identify what things are harmful to us in a religious aspect, or ways to work around and create boundaries?
Okay. So, is there any more question after this?
There's one more question.
One more, okay.
It's going to hit the spot, inshallah.
Okay. So coming back to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, talk about his conviction. When Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam departed from this world, so Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu made a statement, and it was the most profound statement any Khalifa could ever make. It saved the entire deen. He's like, Man kana, whoever used to worship Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for him, he needs to know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has departed this world. But whoever used to worship Allah, he needs to know, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ حَيٌّ لَا يَمُوتُ. Allah is ever living, everlasting, and he does not die. Right? So it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, talking about departure of Rasulullah from this world is a very hard time. It doesn't, no difficulty is greater than that for the entire ummah. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, because he understood the mandate, he understood the temperament, mizaj, as we call it, of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The deen is more important than anything else, right? So even for us, we really need to have that conviction that deen is the most important thing, and it has to be the most important element of my life, right? Once you have that conviction, then nothing, you're unstoppable, because to fit in anywhere is not a problem for you, right? People around you will understand this person has very strong belief, right? Very strong belief. Like, just to touch on that, right? Like, for the lack of better, like, because I love basketball, I guess. So Kobe, like the Mamba mentality that he had. A lot of times, a lot of players found him that this person used to practice like no tomorrow. He's always there. right? He believed in his game. Like he's like he had this belief that if I practice, I'll be able to dominate the game. Like Mamba mentality. I'll be able to conquer anything. I just need to practice more. I need to give it more time. Right? For us too, like the more we learn about Deen, the more of a stronger mentality we build. And once you're in that court, like Kobe, it's unstoppable. It doesn't matter how good other players were. He just told himself, I'm better than all of these guys, right? So it's like, once we learn about our deen, we just become, mentally, we become a stronger person, right? I need to trust Allah. I need to trust Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when you trust Allah and Rasul, right, then you know that any problem or any issues that you have, Allah will get you out of it. Right, so it's the reliance in Allah. I normally say this in my Jummah khutbah a lot. We gotta learn to have faith in our faith. Like we have to trust our faith. You know, our faith is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasul. That's our belief, right? So we gotta have belief in our, belief in our belief. Like I trust Allah. I trust that I'll submit myself to Islam. Right. So let that process do its part. Right.
I guess continuing with that.
Okay.
After understanding that we need to be convinced of our faith and recognizing that that's where the Muslim identity starts. The next question is that I have is, how do we be proud of a Muslim? How to be proud as a Muslim?
So like, there's a couple elements involved in this. First of all, right, I think we were discussing before. You can only be proud of something if you know something. Right, you can only feel good about something if you know something. If I don't know how to drive a car, I'll never be proud of my driving skills, right? Like going back to the basket analogy again, like Curry is proud of his 3-pointers because this is what he's good at. Like LeBron James, he's proud of his dunk. This is what he's good at. Maybe like other things as well, right? So like if you look at any sport, right, whatever they're good at, that's what they're most proud of. Like no one can beat me in this. I'm good at this, right? So we need to be good at our religion. We need to be good at Islam in terms of practices of Islam, right? You need to be a strong believer. You need to be a strong person in terms of practices of Islam. You need to have the best akhlaq, like the best characteristic that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. For example, if say Brother Husnain is the most soft person or soft spoken, and he's very kind, and he's he puts a lot of thought in his questions and answers. So you come off with this person who's very, very considerate of other people, and that's how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. If I can expand, go on like a tangent here, right? Do we have okay? Khalas. There's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Masalul jasadi, masalul mu'minina fi tawaduhim." وأكشي تراحمهم وتوادمهم وتعاطفهم مثل الجسد واحد إذا اشتكى منه عضو تداعى له سائر الجسد. Right? It's a very famous hadith, Bukhari, Muslim, that Muslims, example of Muslims in terms of the compassion and in terms of their forbearance, love towards one another, and in terms of the empathy towards one another, right? They're like one body. If one part of it hurts, the entire body hurts, right? So let's come back to this empathy part. This is actually a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In one of the battles, just to elaborate on the part of empathy, one of the battles, one of the companions stepped on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on his thigh, and it hurt Rasulullah a lot, to the extent that he made that sound. I was like, ow! Like sometimes the sound that we make if our finger gets trapped in the throat, you're like, oh! Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Prophet made that sound. It hurt him really much. Because they were retrieving, this is the battle of Uhud, they were retrieving, and the Prophet fell and it hurt him, and he made that sound. A Sahabi, he freaked out. He's like, whoa, what did I just do? I stepped on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he couldn't forgive himself. Next morning, Prophet called for him, summoned him. The Sahabi, his thought process is like, oh, he must have come down. Like, I'm doomed, I'm done. Like, this is it, right? Jahannam is my place. So this is a thought process. And the Sahabi goes, I went. And Prophet ﷺ said, oh, you come in the front. My heart started pounding really fast. He's like, I just didn't know what to do. So Prophet ﷺ said, oh, yesterday, I think I overreacted when you stepped on me. So I want to apologize. Empathy. Prophet ﷺ placed himself in the position of the Sahabi that it wasn't his fault that he was retrieving. Like, empathy is one aspect. If someone's going through a hard time, you put yourself in that person's position. But another way of looking at it is that Prophet ﷺ always used to atfir, like they use, like English lacks the translation of it, but empathy is one way. But atfir is that Prophet ﷺ always used to place himself under people's position as well. Like when Abu Jahl's son, Ikrimah, he came to, he accepted Islam, and he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, And then Prophet ﷺ right away empathized with him, and he said, none of the companions are allowed to say anything to him with regards to his father, because if you bring his father up, he did not accept Islam. If you bring his father, it's going to hurt his feeling. So I don't want you guys to say anything. Right? So Muslim identity is much more than just like, you know, the ritual practices or devotional acts. It's about like the whole lifestyle. So if you carry this sunnah of empathy, and you're known in the college and uni, like this person empathizes with people a lot. So you're basically presenting Islam to people that this is one of the, you know, one of the aspects of Islam that we need to practice as well. So we have to, it all comes down to learn the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and analyze it in a way that, okay, how do I, you know, bring these qualities in my life? And once you have that prophetic lifestyle, there's no lifestyle better than the lifestyle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's our Muslim belief.
Just to drag one more question in there. In that same point, in that same sense, what about the one that's just beginning their journey? And maybe this is the start of the journey. Maybe they haven't been on this journey in the past.
Okay. So look, like for me, I would say to start from characteristics, right? Obviously, you want to start off with building your fara'id as well, right? That's part of who Muslims are, praying 5 times a day, fasting month of Ramadan, zakat and hajj and so on and so forth. You want to start working on that as well. And you and fara'id, if you're the first time, you're a beginner, start with baby steps. You're a person that's struggling with fajr, right? At the masjid, we'll start off with praying fajr at home. Once you're able to build that habit, okay, now my next step is I'm going to go to the masjid, right? You're a person that is not able to 5 times. You're like, you know, I want to start. Start with the most easiest salah that's good, like that's easiest for you. Like Maghrib, fine, you know, I'm going to start with Maghrib. That's your starting point, right? And then in terms of like other thing, like you're a person who doesn't know how to recite Quran. All right, start by learning letters of the, you know, we call it qaida, the usuls in there, right? There's some, the methods and did that teach you, enables you to learn Quran. You start from there. If you're a person that does not know, haven't memorized any portion of the Quran, you start with the smallest surah. So always start off with the easiest and the smallest task, and then build on that.
I see.
Right? So you want to take the first baby step. Once you've taken the first step, rest of the steps will be easy.
Sheikh, you know, I was just thinking back to, I've heard this. I've heard you went to high school in here. So how was your high school journey in the West? And how did you like get to uphold your Muslim identity? Like, what were the challenges you experienced? And what were
our time, like I went to PM here, Princess Margaret, right? Back then in 90s, this is like, 90s. I kind of feel old, man.
You look very young.
Yeah, when I breathe in and hold my belly, I look younger. Okay, so us, Islamophobic, was very high because of 9/11 had just taken place. I remember we were walking to school that day. It was grade 8. Yeah. My first year, like, and then you know, like we're freaking out basically. We're like, whoa, like what just happened? And it happened while we were walking to school. It wasn't like had occurred. Our parents are like, okay, you can't, don't go to school today. Like we got to school and news all over the thing. And the people said really, really like mean things to us. And then the sisters were really scared because like for us, like, you know, now I have a beard and like a, you know, like a kufi and a thobe. Like people couldn't tell us apart from like if you're like a, you know, Muslim person or you're, you know, a brown person with other set of beliefs, right? Like most of the, it's brown people, like that's predominantly that's what the school students were full of. So sisters were having the hardest time because of the hijab that they were wearing. So a solution that we came up with at that time is that a lot of Muslim brothers need to start wearing the Islamic dress so we can take a little bit of heat off the sisters. Right, so we can help them. Okay, like we're Muslims too. All the racist slurs that you wanna, you know, cast at the sisters, send them our way too, right? And let us have our, you know, the piece of the cake. So it was really hard, like very, very. Those 4 years was very, very hard for us. Like, and we had established, you know, they gave us a school bus. So my brother, he's very active religiously. He's very active. So he spoke to the principal. This first time in history, they're like, okay, we're gonna give you a school bus. You can go pray Jummah at the masjid. The school was doing its best to like give us that, you know. And then a lot of brothers were starting wearing kufi, and on Friday a lot of brothers started wearing thobe to express and show their Muslim identity. And then it just brought us together though.
I see.
A lot of Muslims, we got together, and it just created a sense of belonging for us. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I say this a lot in my my masjid committee circles and all of those places. For our youth, for us, we need to create circles or programs that give us sense of belonging right now. Right? We don't have that.
Yeah.
Like, our youth does not feel connected to the masjid. If he doesn't pray in the masjid, he does not feel that he's connected to the masjid. So programs, seminars, conferences, whatever you can think of. There's 1,001 ways, you can use your creative imagination to come up with the programs. So it gives a sense of belonging, right? If you know, like, if you go to Burnaby, is that you guys masjid? Like, Imam Yahya is doing a wonderful job. Shout out to him, right? So if he has courses, or if he's doing a program, like, meet the Imam, chat and chai, or something like that, right? At school, a professor or a teacher says something, you don't understand it. You're like, like, this contradicts. Like, he's confused me about my Islam, my belief, right? So, we have a chat and chai circle. The Imam Yahya, I'll just ask him there.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of, like, traditionally, I have to go pray. And then, if I make it for the salah, I'll ask him. But you're like, it's easier to lure the youth in. There's like activity going on, there's food program going on, there's sports program, and he comes and asks that question, right? So it brings that the sense of belonging to a community, to a masjid, right? And then the problems of your community. Then you have this sense of realization. Okay, you know what? Like, my community is suffering in this aspect a lot. I'm gonna do something about it. Right, so you become a problem solver. You're coming up with the solutions for your community, right? So it could be many things. Like, a lot of youth here. Recently, we started having like our mic system is very old now, right? So we had some issues. A lot of youngsters like, Sheikh, like, I know it, I could fix it. And then one person has just taken the responsibility. He's like, I'm going to make sure all the speakers and mic and everything working. So he feels that, okay, I can do something for the community. I can do something for the masjid, right? So, like, we have to have alternatives, programs for us to draw the youth in and connect them to the masjid. Once they have that sense of belonging, it could be in any aspect, any level, then they will always feel proud of who they are. Also, because of the event, it brought all the Muslims together, and now we were connecting ourselves to the masjid through Jummah. So we felt like, if it's okay if these people don't accept me, but there's one circle that I'm accepted and appreciated. In the masjid, I'm accepted and appreciated, right? So it's really important to have that type of movement. So my high school, because of that, I decided that okay, I'm gonna go memorize Quran. Because of that, I decided I'm gonna go in get Ulum Sharia. Like, I need to learn more about my religion because the sense of belonging was there. Then now I'm back into university setting again. Like, I'm a student myself. So my professors, they always they're asking me for pointers how to deliver a lecture in class because they found out that I'm an imam. I was like, I'm a fake imam. Like, you have all the sheikhs. I'm the milkshake, right? Not the real one. But like, it just makes me feel proud. Like, wow, like Allah is giving you this is an honor because of religion. It's not like I'm nothing, but Deen is everything. So it gives you it empowers you. At a time when no one trusts you, Allah believes in you. Allah trusts you. So our Deen empowers us in many ways, more ways than we can ever imagine.
I see. Going into that bit, just to get a bit more on the ground. When you're in high school, when you're in university, you're sitting in a class. How do you bring people together? And in a context, for example, let's say you're in a class and you need to pray. And some people are stronger at certain qualities. Some people are stronger in taking the lead. Some people are stronger in helping out. How do Muslims in these settings come together and take a lead in this and really be proud of what they need to do? Let's say, for example, they struggle with praying salah at school because of the school environment. What's the professor going to say? What are my peers going to say? Where is he going?
So it really boils down to for you to understand that this is my responsibility I need to fulfill. This is my obligation to Allah. Another way of looking at it, everyone loves to be loyal. Everyone loves loyalty. That's human nature. We love loyal people and we love loyalty. Right? If you take that concept and apply it to yourself and Allah, I need to be loyal to Allah. Right? I need to pray. My loyalty comes in the form of praying to Allah. Then you, alhamdulillah, if you made it to uni, Even in high school setting, you're there and you actually, serious about your studies. That means Allah, you have that sense of responsibility in you are ready, right? That's just a light example. It doesn't have to be that way. So you will have a strategic planning. Like this class, I know I'm not going to be accepted. Teacher might give me a little hard time. Maybe I find a professor that can speak to this professor for me, or I can just. A lot of times, 99.9% of the time, professors are always like. Nowadays, I struggle with the timing because the class, I'm close by, so like I can come in from a Jummah khutbah and go back to class again, and that's what I do. So some of the professors allow me to do it. Some of the professors are like, oh, we're not sure, you're gonna miss out on so much and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I'll seek help for whatever subjects and topics I'm gonna miss in class. I'll go to a tuition center and I'll tell them to teach me, right? Yeah. Whatever I don't understand, I'll get it done. So sometimes you have to like figure out a way that, okay, it's not going to work with this professor, but I'm still going to do it. Yeah. Still going to pray. They can't stop you from praying, but I'll have to make up for it. But here's the thing. I've learned this through practical implementation. If you're a student that puts in a lot of effort in your studies, and when you make this type of request to the professor, 110% will grant you. Yeah. Because they know that you're a serious student. You're not here wasting time, and you're honest student, right? Honesty is the key. Like, even in like, sometimes life happens, right? Yeah. And you're late in submitting your essay, you don't have to lie about it. Like, I'm not going to lie to my professor. I'm just going to tell him that, okay, I had guests over and I couldn't do it, or, I slept in and I couldn't do it. So just give him an honest reason. Right? And then the teacher sees that this person is ready to take the penalty because he does not want to let go of the honesty. And when you make a request for salah, like, I know that you never lie. I'm going to let you go pray. Yeah. Right? And then when you become that person, sometimes for the other students in your peers, it becomes hard because you haven't broken the ice. So right away, you got to figure out some sort of way to break the ice, right? Like for my son, when I took him swimming, he was scared of the water. Yeah. He just want to go in. So then I kind of dig deep into it. He just doesn't like cold water, right? I was like, so at home I used to fill up the tub with lukewarm water and he used to put his foot in. And then when I took him swimming, he's like, oh, it's the same. So he slowly learned to get in. So sometimes you just have to know how to break the ice, right? Once you break the ice, it has been established, I see. Right? Then it's easy. Like people know, like sometimes like some of my group members, they'll remind me, it's like, aren't you going to go pray? I was like, oh yeah, I got to go. Like,
do you have experiences of breaking the ice at these settings at the university, at schools?
Yes, you gotta. Like I didn't know that this was a thing until I was in that situation again. Like I'm doing my alim degree and then I'm back in, sitting with the high school teenagers doing my uni again. But it worked. This thing helped for me. Like other people have other ways to do it, but this thing helped. Like break the ice right away. Yeah. And for a lot of time, my dress gives it away. Like I dress like this, so it's understood if I make a request for salah or for prayer time to let me go. So it's more like strategic planning. That's what I call it. Like you're just gonna plan it out. How I'm gonna convince people that I need to pray. How I need to convince my professor that at this time it's important for me that I pray. Right? Look, for us to pray, it even helps us mentally. It's not just salah, fulfillment of salah. Like it gets rid of so much anxiety, depression that builds up over the day. It just gives a moment of reflection, and it just gives us that moment. Gives us a moment to realize we're standing before Allah and also contemplate and think of our life. Like, what am I doing? So it releases so much negative energy out of your body. Salah releases so much negative energy out of our body. It's unbelievable, right? Just by standing before Allah. So it's not like praying is not just a religious obligation. It is a religious obligation, but in extension, it brings so much benefit to my life. It just makes me a healthier person. So you tell your professor, like, if I go pray, chances are I'll probably write a better essay for you because mentally I'll be cleared up. And, it's not just, that chances are, like, I'm not saying hypothetically speaking, right? Don't say that if I pray then 100%, and you don't do good on the test, the professor's like, hey, what happened there? But no, there's one of the ways that you can present. Anyways, like creativity, how present it to the teacher and students, it's up to you, but have that icebreaker. That only helps.
I see. Any other points because you've been here, you've been in these settings. Yeah. Any other gems or points that you have for
I think like MSA, you guys, like I would request, actually, like encourage a lot of students, connect yourself to Muslim student bodies, and then once you graduate, connect yourself to Muslim circles.
I see.
'Cause that's what will allow you to protect your Muslim identity. That's what will allow you to follow the lifestyle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So connecting yourself to practicing Muslims will inspire you, right? You know, in English they say a man is known by the company he keeps, right? Yeah. So it's literally that, right? So it depends on who you befriend and what type of circles you're sitting in, and it has an influence on you, right? If I sit with engineers for a couple of years, even if I'm not, like, I'll start talking like them, like wanna be, like, you know. But if you start sitting with, you know, scholars and practicing Muslims, people who are not into drugs and not into, you know, bad stuff or evil or vices, then chances are there's very high chance that you'll be a person who's also very good at, you know, practicing Islam and a good role model for the community and the youngsters. So connecting ourselves, like, sense of belonging has to be there. I keep on saying this, sense of belonging has to be there. So we'll keep it at that. We'll keep it at that, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Wa inshallah. Jazakallah for having me. Allah Ta'ala reward you guys. You guys are doing wonderful job, wonderful work. It's always nice to have you guys around. You're always welcome in our masjid, Masjid Rahmah, inshallah. But I make dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me hidayah for what, and, you know, through whatever I've said, and, you know, make it a means of guidance for the rest of mankind. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever effort that you guys are making, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a means of our salvation in the hereafter, and grant us the blessings of it in this world, and grant us, you know, ikhlas, like sincerity of intention that we do. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us istiqamah, like steadfastness in what we do. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Again, jazakallah khair. I want to say jazakallah khair to you. I want to say jazakallah khair to our viewers. Inshallah, this is going to be the end of this podcast. Inshallah, stay tuned, as we will have more podcasts coming soon, inshallah. And if you haven't seen the first one, I really recommend that you go back, watch the first one, and enjoy these, and take from them, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Perfect, Sheikh. You nailed it.